All right, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, so I think I'll just jump straight into the demo. What we have here is the first time I've ever shown anybody my L4. Here is a little bit of code in the front window, and in the back is something that's getting auto-generated as I save in this file. The stuff in the background gets updated. And this is useful because we have here a working isomorphism between code and what could turn into legislation. So this thing on the top left is the text of legislation that came out of the rebates case study. And if I were to change this thing from 1/2 to 1/3, you will see that change on the screen as well. So I'll jump into my full presentation. This won't take too long. But I'm calling it isomorphism in L4, and it looks like what this thing's going to turn into is a universal converter for rules as code. So the inspiration for this was on that thread that I think we've all been active on Twitter. I think somebody might need to mute because I'm getting an echo here. So a few days ago, we saw the Rates Rebate Act. I think most people are familiar with this. The text of this is incredibly verbose, very difficult to understand. And there was a bug in it that needed some very intelligent people to solve. This is the code in OpenFisca, and the bug fix was on this line, and all it needed was a little clip. And this brought up kind of the question of how do we find bugs? How do we prevent these bugs? And when we're talking about legislation, how do we prevent bugs in contracts? How do we prevent loopholes in law? And we talked about this. And my solution was to say, well, let's try something called isomorphism, where you've got the code, you've got the English, and these two things can turn into each other. So Pia was enthusiastic about this. What Pia wants, Pia gets. So this is what L4 looks like. It exactly maps to the text of the legislation. And when you run this little script that I have, it is able to produce exactly the text from that code that you just saw, word for word. Very proud about that. So how is this useful, right? So having was the amount by which this thing exceeds that thing. And you'd think A minus B would give you that, right? But actually it turns out if A is greater than B, then otherwise you get 0, because if B is greater than A just going to add a new operator to the language. These guys came from Sydney. I did not know that, but now I do. So this is how you fix it. And this is a way of putting legislation into the debugger, being able to trace exactly how an answer was arrived at. And this is cool because once you have the isomorphism between code and law, you can make a tiny change in the editor and you can see the ramifications of that change. You can also output to just an algebraic hyperledger. So you can now translate OpenFisca into L4 and then into Cicero. You can translate OpenFisca into L4 and then into X algorithms. So I think because we're all trying to do roughly the same thing, it would be nice to be able to have a lingua franca, be able to input and output to all kinds of different formats. So that's kind of my roadmap. I guess it's 5 a.m. now, and between midnight and 5 a.m. while I was waiting for the call, I did a bunch of that. So It is a work in progress. So that's my time. Thank you all.